We're going to be getting into the OC board meeting here shortly. We are literally just waiting for sound. And once we have sound, we should be good to go. So thank you for joining us here today. All right. So this is the Olympic College board meeting that you're tuning in for. And the silence is because we are waiting for them to produce the audio. All right.
The Olympic College Board of Trustees meeting is now called to order.
Here we go.
You may have noticed a change to the agenda format for tonight's meeting. Each year, the incoming board chair has the opportunity to introduce a new format and tone for our meetings. I think it's sometimes forgotten that these are the board's meetings. They're an opportunity for us to learn about, discuss, and direct the college. We set the agenda, we select the topics, and we decide who speaks. This coming year, I'd like the meetings to focus on two primary goals: student success and financial sustainability. By student success, I'm referring to enrollment, completion rates, closing access, achievement, and equity gaps, and initiatives to draw new students to the college and previous students back. By financial sustainability, I'm referring to alignment of the college's revenue, which obviously correlates with enrollment and spending. Over the next couple of years, we must get revenue and spending back into alignment to ensure that Olympic College is able to serve our students, local employers, and our community in perpetuity. I'd also like to improve the tone and increase the level of engagement between the board and the college community. By now, all should be aware that COVID dramatically accelerated the disruptions that were already occurring across all higher education. We must accept that the normal is history and that we've got to work together to invent a new one. Going forward, our meeting will focus on one or two in-depth study sessions with hopefully robust interaction between trustees and the presenters. In this way, the board can play an active role in setting future direction of the college and supporting the faculty and staff in their efforts to get us there. So without further comment, I'd like to move to the first item on the agenda, which is the report of the Board of Trustees. And Trustee Bryant, would you like to lead off?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to start out with saying congratulations to our new chair. I'm excited about what's going forward. Also, I wanted to say thank you to the college for allowing me to go to the ACCT conference. I learned a lot there. It was outstanding. We got to meet a lot of other trustees that were there, and it was great seminars. And so I really appreciate that. And I wanted to kind of reiterate with what Tom was talking about, is that trying to change the culture of our board meetings. And so we're hoping it's for better, and for everybody that attends would be able to enjoy the changes that's going to come forward with our new chair. So I'm excited about that. And so thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Coleman?
Yes, I also was able to attend the ACC conference. Very insightful, formal, learned a lot. I go to the first conference I've attended. I'm just glad to be able to meet in person now. I've seen several people online and Zoom, but I think for me, it's an eye-opener, because I think our college is facing some of the same challenges all over the country. So I think it was give us a lot of ideas and information which we can implement, that we can move the college forward as well. Thank you so much, Tom, for taking the leadership as chair. In full support of you. And of course, we believe that the college can be a better place to be. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brandon. No worries.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriffman, and I too congratulate you on your new role. I'm looking forward to working with you. I think you will do an excellent job, and I'm excited about this new year. So I fully support that. I unfortunately was not able to attend the conference, so I'm looking forward to talking with all of you and finding out what I did miss. I had other work obligations, so I was not able to make it this time. So thank you.
I'd like to talk about
Yeah,
that.
sure.
I just want to thank Chairman Lynn, did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And Trustee Gonzalez, I don't believe is online. Adam, do you see him?
There is someone named Gonzalez, but I'm not sure if that's.
Okay, well, we'll move on then. And I guess for my report, I joined the trustees Brian D. Coleman in the ACCT Congress in New York. And I agree, it was just a great opportunity to meet trustees and college presidents from all over the country and find out what they're doing and, you know, the challenges they're facing. And, you know, and it turns out they're not a lot different than what we're facing. And so I was able to tour the Bronx Community College while I was back there, which is now part of the City University of New York system. That college was established in 1950s, but they inherited an NYU campus that was built around and the architecture was fabulous. But like many community colleges, they're a bit underfunded on the facilities side and fighting the battle of how do you maintain 100-plus-year-old structures and all the enrollment and budget challenges that we're facing. So, you know, I guess the sense of camaraderie that we're all facing these challenges, but they really have had experience. I also came back from the Congress with lots of new ideas, and I'm hoping over this next year we can, you know, that I and the other trustees can, you know, start to introduce these. But I wanted to point out one in particular because it really kind of rocked my world. And it was a presentation by a presenter from the Piedmont Community College in North Carolina. Piedmont's a community college about the same size as OC. And last spring, they had a falling out with their bookstore contractor and were faced with not having textbooks for the start of the school year. And they pivoted pretty quickly and turned to a company that has a unique approach to OER, Open Educational Resources. And by the first day of classes, we're able to cover the textbook needs of 98% of their courses. So it took about 4 months. And the cost to the students now is a flat $50 per class. So if you can think about what that would mean if we could do something like that at OC, where you know, much lower cost for the students, and they've all got their textbooks and everything they need on the first day of class. And if our students are like many of the other colleges I talked to, you know, up to 40 or 50% of students never even get a textbook. They can't afford to buy it. So they're going to the library, borrowing it, they're trying to fund. So again, just think of the enrichment and education they had all the materials on day one. So again, I hope we can pursue that. Also, I learned about a marketing program that's focused on building awareness of community cultures. And it's working quite well for some institutions back there. You know, we all know OC, it's kind of our everyday vocabulary, but you get out in the community, a lot of people, you know, well, it's a college down there, and they really don't know much about the college. And if they do, what their knowledge is 10 or 15 years old. And so I think we need to get out there with more outreach, talk about the new things we're doing, you know, again, bringing students in, you know, new students in, and then bringing back the, what do they call them, the stop out students. The students that started college and then left before getting their degree. And there are literally tens of thousands in the Kitsap community that we can now maybe, you know, with some of the new certificate programs, start to entice back to college. So these are some of the things, you know, we can start to do. We can do right now and start to hammer on this enrollment issue. So, anyway, I hope again that over the next year we can get into some more of these and get some discussion going. So moving on, let's go to the introduction of new Olympic College employees. Adam?
Yes, Chair Ekman. First, to introduce the new Olympic College employee will be back to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Becky.
Hello. I wanted to say that this is going to be my last time at a Board of Trustees meeting as Dean of Social Science and Humanities here, and I am so grateful that this last experience is going to be in introducing an outstanding new faculty tenure track for Olympic College and our division. So with no further ado, I am going to introduce to you Grace Jones. Grace actually has already been working at Olympic College as a adjunct faculty, and she's one of the faculty that we hired as a new full-time tenure track faculty as part of the state funding that we got to accomplish that. She had her associate's degree at Olympic College, and it was in human services and included a substance use disorder professional certificate. She went on to Evergreen State, and she got a Bachelor's of Arts in the Native Pathways program there. She went on to City University of Seattle, where she got her Master's of Arts in Leadership and Nonprofit Leadership. And then she is currently in her final stages of getting her Doctorate of Education in Leadership from City University. In fact, she completed everything but her dissertation and is due to complete that in 2023. She has her Washington State certification in substance use disorder professionals and maintains that. She has a very strong background in working with diverse peoples, even before she became an instructor at OC throughout the region and working with substance use disorder professionals, but also in working with our students, people from different educational backgrounds, racial backgrounds, ethnic, socioeconomical, military, and a really strong emphasis on working with reentry students. We were very much struck with her engaging, well-organized, fluid teaching style. She has especially good use of technology in that she uses in her instruction, and that goes from web-assisted courses when she teaches face-to-face. She does high-flex courses and, when appropriate, online courses. She was a first-generation college student herself and has a very strong affinity to work with first-generation college students. She has excellent community contacts and collaboration with the substance use disorder professionals in the region, and utilizes that well in the advisory council that she helps Morel Cohen with at our college. She's experienced in developing curriculum programs, and in fact, she worked hand in hand with Morel recently in designing the curriculum for the apprenticeship program in the apprenticeship substance use disorder professionals program requested by the state. She has a vision and is dedicated to building and designing a BAS in behavioral health for Olympic College, which will focus on creating future substance use disorder professionals for the region, which is in dire need of these well-trained people. She has a great sense of humor that she uses very appropriately and timely to engage others. You just mentioned OER in your comments a few minutes ago. She already employs OER and other low-cost resources to help support student learning in the program and to make sure that the students do not incur higher debt. She has excellent contacts and working relations with local military and the tribal organizations. Past experience working with both of these groups in the Kitsap Peninsula area. And she has been working with Morel in the IBEST program for human services for the last couple of years to provide 360 wraparound support for students who are in need. And I could continue on, but I think you get the impression that we have made an outstanding hire in our new tenure track employee, Grace Jones for our Human Services area. Congratulations, Grace.
Thank you.
We have Grace here.
Yes, we do. I believe she's unmuted. And Grace, you're able to say a few words.
Yes, thanks so much. It's such an honor to be here with you all this evening, albeit virtually. I am absolutely just over the moon at the opportunity to be able to work full-time for Olympic College. And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. And I am really excited about what the future holds, not only for my career, but for our students coming through our program. And Becky, thank you so much for that wonderful, I wish I would have recorded that. That was a great introduction. Thank you. I could play that every day for myself and be like, yay. Thank you all so much. I just appreciate your time.
Thank you, Grace, and welcome to OC.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Next up, we have Dean Elaine Williams-Ryan.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Cavaluzzi. Thanks for having me. I'm here to introduce our new community standards officer, Igor Lukashin. Igor's been here for almost a month now, thank goodness. And so Igor holds a master's in economics from the Claremont Graduate University and has undergraduate teaching experience at both public and for-profit universities in the traditional classroom as well as online, teaching a variety of classes from economics and statistics to critical thinking, research writing, algebra, and introduction to university studies. I just want to say right now, nobody's stealing. Okay. For those of you who may not remember, Rick Summers was our community standards officer. So just putting it out there. He also worked as a professional translator and editor on numerous change management projects for global consulting firms across a variety of industries, in customer service for major global travel agencies. And during the pandemic, he worked for an employment security department adjudicating unemployment insurance claims, subsequently transitioning into a technical consultation role, training his colleagues on applicable laws, policies, and systems. His teaching experience highlighted the importance of setting clear expectations, making mistakes, a learning and growing experience, as well as working collaboratively with other college stakeholders to provide students with the help they might need to be successful. His adjudication experience sharpened his understanding of and commitment to due process, which really comes in handy when we get our referrals for academic dishonesty. The goal of the Community Standards Office is to support the college in retaining and developing its students. We're really glad to have Igor here, and he's excited to be here as our new Community Standards Officer. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here, and I really believe in helping our students succeed. And for that, I hope to get all of you to pitch in and help me in that goal, and including our Assistant Attorney General, because some of the areas that I've encountered working in the way in the past months is compliance and implementing the new laws that we just adopted, including the sample on hazing. So we're really looking forward to the guidance so that can help us direct our students and make the college a learning environment for everybody involved.
Thank you, Igor. Welcome.
Welcome.
Believe that is all the employee introductions we have.
I have
I'm sorry.
one.
Sorry, yes.
I'm Rick Summer. I am the Director of Labor and Compliance, formerly HR Compliance Manager. I have laid my portfolio right now because Carol McWhorter was gracious enough to give it to me because she was the Labor and Employee Relations Manager, but she's now the Organizational Culture and Employee Relations Manager. She will be expanding on what Human Resources has been providing in the employee's HR functional area. but widening her focus on employee engagement, employee development, training, and culture change programs. Carol is at OC for over 5 years, all that time in human resources. She started as a human resource consultant assistant one, worked her way all the way to a manager, and she's really excited on the new focus of her position. She's not a fan of public speaking.
Is there a lot for you to say?
Hi, can everyone hear? So I'm very excited about this position. It's something that Josh and I've been talking about for a while. I feel like I know the OC employees pretty well, and I'd like to start helping implement some changes that will increase engagement across campus. So yeah, I've handed over labor to Rick, and I'm excited for these new changes.
Welcome to OC, Carol.
That is all.
Thank you. Want us to move? Yeah, this is going to be a slide presentation, so if you don't mind.
So we preserved the front left of the board and that was the order. Go ahead and drop the slide.
Yeah. Two. Yeah. Really? Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Adam is pulling that up. I wanted to thank you, Chair Ekman, and members of the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to be the inaugural presenter in reformatted Board of Trustees meetings. I'm very excited at this opportunity, but also very fearful of the robust dialogue. This may be my first and last time presenting to the board. We're going to be talking, as you mentioned, Chair Ekman, we're going to be talking about enrollment forecasts and the budget. And it's kind of an interesting subject. It's kind of a conglomeration of business finance and enrollment and forecasting. And I hope that I can do it justice. I hope that it turns out to be informative for you as well as the rest of the college community that's here tonight, both virtually and in person. So even in the best of times, enrollment forecasting or projecting enrollment is generally a pretty mix of art and science. That said, in the last several years, there have been several disruptive influences that have made projecting future enrollment more challenging than ever before. Chair Ekman mentioned, I think in his opening remarks, the long-running nationwide enrollment drought that all higher education has experienced and continues to experience, and that we forecast will last through at least 2025. There have been changing attitudes about the importance of college education. COVID and its still unclear long-lasting effects. One of the things that we've noticed is that there doesn't appear any big rush of students that took a break from school during COVID to come back or were forced to take a break. COVID necessitated shifts in distance and virtual learning also caused some changes. I'm not sure why this is cut off, but it looked good in the presentation format, but E, established economic related norms are no longer holding true. And what I mean by that is, as you may be well aware, when traditionally in community college education, when there's a slowdown in the economy or a disruption in the economy, that often means an uptick, increases in community college enrollment as students or potential students look for opportunities to upgrade their education, to look for, to qualify for better opportunities in the tight labor market. And that just has not been the case so far with the current slowdown that we're kind of in the middle of right now. Next slide. Community colleges have been hit particularly hard, accounting for more than half of higher education's enrollment losses. Among those, colleges and universities that are seeing the largest declines are primarily public institutions. Institutions with the lowest expected growth rates are those that tend to recruit most heavily from their home districts or regions, which includes Olympic College. Unfortunately, minorities and marginalized groups are the most at risk for the impacts caused by these disruptions. And as schools pivot to try to address the shortfalls in enrollment and other negative impacts. On the plus side, more than a third of the institutions with the lowest expected growth have substantial room to improve retention rates to help support stable enrollment. Next slide. While it's difficult to predict exactly how many students plan to attend college in a given year, enrollment data from sources like FAFSA indicate that the number of new college applicants are at all-time lows. As a result, OC is prioritizing activities such as strategic enrollment management, retention strategies like focusing on student experience, electronic recruitment initiatives. These approaches and more are more important than ever before in its combat the overall enrollment declines that we've been seeing. Adam. So what is the relationship between enrollment and budgeting? Well, this pie chart kind of helps, I think, you visualize what we're talking about here. So as you may or may not be aware, enrollment is the primary driver for tuition, student tuition, and student fees. And if you'll look at the pie chart, you'll see that it's the purple piece of the pie there. But enrollment also affects our state allocation, our state provisional money and earmarks, and enrollment, while it's not directly college related, but Running Start enrollment are basically high school students who choose to enroll in Running Start programs here at the college. So then it is enrollment based. To get a little bit more specific, student enrollment either directly, as I mentioned, through tuition and fees, or indirectly through appropriations, earmarks, and provisos drives a very significant portion of the college's revenue, 87%. Running Start enrollments generate another 11%. So do the math. Enrollment, which translates to revenue, is one of the the primary fundamental element in budgeting and strategic planning, particularly on the revenue side. Actual enrollments directly affect the college's tuition and fees. In round numbers, our students generate almost $10 million in tuition and fee revenue, or 20% of our total revenue. OC's enrollment trends over time are combined with enrollments system-wide in the Washington system of community colleges and technical colleges to determine state appropriations and safe harbor monies, which at Olympic College account for $31.5 or 67% of total revenue. Every year, OC estimates the number of students that we expect to enroll. The purposes of these projections are really threefold. First, to project tuition revenue for the operating budget. Second, to determine future levels of programs and services needed. And third is to inform future staffing levels and capital needs. As a result, Olympic College strives for reasonably conservative, realistic, and attainable projections to avoid unnecessary and detrimental surprises. Given current economic environmental uncertainties, it is risky and complex undertaking to reliably forecast student enrollment. Go ahead. Ordinarily, unexpected increases in student enrollment are generally better received than decreases, in as much as additional revenue usually is generated, and that's a good thing. On the flip side, unforeseen decreases in student enrollment are far more disruptive. For this situation, nearly always results in fewer dollars than projected in the budget. Decreases in student enrollment often create a vicious spiral. To illustrate, decreased student enrollment is followed by a reduction in budget allocation. Reduced allocations force cutbacks in personnel and programs. Fewer programs often result in students and in turn yet fewer dollars, and so on and so on. So this slide, probably seen me share before. It's kind of the revenue and expense funnel that represents the community college business model. The three bubbles, you'll see the two green and blue bubbles are the revenue. And again, they are either, generally either directly or indirectly tied to enrollment. Expenses are wages, materials, supplies, other expenses. Basically, to the point that Chair Ekman made in one of his comments earlier, if expenses exceed revenues, the budget is in deficit. If enrollment is below expectation, oftentimes that means our revenues are lower than expected, which means our budget is likely in deficit. So there really is a seminal relationship between both enrollment and revenue and the college's financial health. Next slide. So to give you a little bit of an idea of where we've been and kind of where we're going, if trends continue, this slide shows both the FTE and headcount actual enrollment over time, and you'll see that they are both trending downward, or they're both going downward, but trends extending out downward, and that gives us a lot of opportunity to improve. One of the things that we'll expect to see the next time this slide is revised is we should hopefully see that enrollments are flattening in 22-23. This is what was used for the purposes of projecting this year's budget, the budget that we're operating in right now. But now that we have fall actuals and are looking forward to winter projections, we'll be able to look at and see how the actual enrollments impact these lines. Next slide. So this slide shows the three-year budget projections. The red line at the very top, that's our expenses. And the dotted lines are the projected expenses out into time. The green line right below there is the revenue line. You'll see that the two lines are divergent, which means that we're getting farther and farther. Expenses are growing faster than our revenues. You'll note on the bottom line is the total loss or gain or loss, and you'll see that we're projecting in 26-27, we're projecting a loss of $7 million or a deficit of $7 million. The enrollment projections that were used for this projection are those numbers that are reported at the very bottom. So FTE of 3,500 out to 2,900 in the last year of the projection, and then 4,400 out to 3,400 in the last year. So steadily declining. But again, that's something that is one of our primary goals, is to turn that around instead of the continuing line to start making improvements in enrollment. Next slide. So forecasting, there are numerous methods that could be applied to forecasting student enrollment, each having inherent strengths and weaknesses. Olympic College uses a continually evolving combination of different approaches in developing student enrollment forecasts tailored to our needs and our goals. We adjust adjust our forecasting approaches over time as institutional challenges and goals, student demographics, and other variables change. Our enrollment forecasts are contextual, meaning that we have a forecast for tuition revenue purposes, one state appropriation purposes, enrollment management, student recruitment, international programs and staffing. We have different projections for different purposes. Next slide. So the three primary forecasting methods that Olympic College uses for budgeting enrollment are time series analysis, which projects enrollment by collecting data points sequentially through time. The ratio method, which predicts future first-year enrollments by examining historical and projected enrollment data. And selective judgment, when objective measures are not available or consistent or reliable, qualitative research of current trends and estimates of influential factors in future events can help predict enrollment trends. More and more, and we find ourselves in the unknown or not unknown, uncharted territory as a result of the enrollment drought and as a result of the COVID experience that we're having. That's thrown all of our predictive models kind of dizzy. And so more than ever before, we're relying more and more on judgment to help us come up with realistic predictions for enrollment. So here's a slide just kind of helps us visualize the different pieces, the different revenue streams. It shows more, but that's really what I put this slide in for. So if you look at the bar graphs, it's hard to read what they say, but I'll tell you. So the red lines, which are the tallest ones, those represent the state funds that include not only appropriations, but also earmarks and proviso money. The line next to that is the orange line, that's tuition. And then the line next to that is purple, and that's fees. So those are the three primary revenue drivers for the college. And as you can see that, over the time represented by this graph, the state revenues have increased generally. And during that same period, tuition and fees have decreased. So, and that's kind of goes back to the point that I was making earlier about tuition and fees being directly tied to enrollment. So we have that fluctuation immediately whenever there are increases or decreases. And that those trends over time are kind of moderated with the state appropriation, because not only do they take averages of our enrollment, but then they also take the averages of all the other 32 colleges, calculate the appropriation. So that is kind of why you see the lags in our appropriation and then the slow drop there. The scary thing is, which is going to add another question mark to how Olympic College will fare in the future, is that the State Board of Community Colleges has announced that they are going to be reviewing the appropriation model and modifying the appropriation model because it's no longer allocating funds as it was intended to, and it's missing the mark as far as intended outcomes. So that introduces uncertainty to all the colleges, to us as well. All right, you've seen this slide before. I've showed it multiple times, but I think this is a good to sort of end on. It's kind of a what ifs. So at the very top, you'll see total revenues projected out for 3 years. And then you see under that operating expenses, you'll see the projected differences, all deficits, 4.8, 5.0, 5.0, 7.0. Just to put your mind at ease, so the $4.8 million deficit that we're showing for the current fiscal year, that is actually the deficit that we expected at the beginning of the budget cycle last year. So $4.8 million is the deficit that we have to fill that gap. And so the budget reduction activities that we went through last year, or last spring, are helped us net that out. So we have a balanced budget. Okay. But you can see that the problem does not go away. That we have a $5 million deficit in next year, the year after that, and then it jumps to 7 million in the last year of the projection. Now, this is really kind of a fairly simple equation. So we have in our toolkit, we have a couple different levers, a couple different dials that we can turn. First being we can increase revenue, or we can decrease expense, or we can do a little bit of both. Okay, and increasing revenue generally means that we increase our number of inlets, or we can increase the number of students that we retain, or again, preferably some of both, right? If we're unable to make up that deficit through enrollments and increased enrollment and increased retention, then the other tool that we have is to reduce our budget, to reduce expenses. We unfortunately, as most of you know, the percentage of our expenses are primarily made up of labor and benefits, so salary and benefits. 80 to 85% of our budget is in salary and benefits. So any decrease that has to occur on the expense side invariably impact labor. That's the challenge. That's the last thing that the college wants to have happen, but that's the mathematical reality. Now, there are some things that we can do. As I mentioned on the revenue side, we can generate a mix of increased enrollment and increased retention. In that middle line, you'll see that in order to fill the gap, in order to net the deficit and come up with a balanced budget in those out years, we would have recruit almost 1,200 new students in 23-24, 24-25, and almost 1,600 in 25-26. That's a tall order, and so we definitely have our work cut out for us. To resolve the deficit through balancing the budget, reducing expenses alone would require in the out years an 8.1% budget reduction, 7.8 and 10.4. So when we look at reducing the budget, we can take one-time cuts and with one-time money in the current period, the current year, and that takes care of that year. That helps balance the budget for that year. But the next year we start all over again. And so even if we cut $1 million of one-time money in the current year, that $1 million in deficit is still there for the next year. So it doesn't erase it. It just came down the road. Okay. So what the goal of the college really is, the goal of an entity like ours is to really make permanent cuts that will permanently reduce the deficit going forward. So we're not having to do that year after year. To try to illustrate that, so if you look at the bottom line, which are the budget deficits, because we reduced $8.4 million this year to balance our budget. Now, to be fair, I think the majority of that was in one-time cuts. Some of it was permanent, but say it was all permanent, just for the sake of conversation. If that whole 8.4 is in permanent cuts, then next year we would likely have no deficit because we would have resolved that imbalance that Chair Ackman has talked about. We would have eliminated that imbalance, that structural imbalance. And so that's kind of how it works. And that's our goal, whether it's through increased enrollment, increased retention, or decrease in our expenses and the utilization of resources. Next slide. So I'm going to change gears right now. We're actually at the end of my presentation. Thank goodness. This Sharon asked for me to kind of a little update on where the budget and finance council is after well at about 1.5. We're about halfway through actually our first full year. The budget, as you know, is part of the college's new governance structure, and they have a number of responsibilities that I've highlighted here. Per charter, we are focused on those following areas, and the ones that are highlighted in bold and underscored, those are the ones that we are really heavily focused on right now. You'll notice that there's only one that is kind of pending, and that is reviewing college-wide financial and budget policies. But I wanted to go over and kind of show you where we're at, what we're working on. So first and foremost, we have begun discussions on developing a long-range financial plan that focuses on financial sustainability, which we've been talking about, and coincides with program review and strategitic planning. Number two, we're developing one of the primary roles of the Budget Council is to develop ground rules and assumptions for budgeting in each operational year. So we'll be talking about enrollment forecasts and other variables that the college, other levers that the college can adjust to try to come to a balanced budget. Receiving and doing annual budget allocation recommendations. So as we progress through the budget development process, if there is a call for program improvements, if we have money to allocate out, then the Budget Council will have an opportunity to hear those proposals and give recommendations to the president and to the board about where they think the college should make investments. And then finally, convening board-wide forums, and then finally developing a budget cycle timeline, which is basically our annual calendar for budget development. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that the board might have, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you, Rod. Excellent. Thank you. So you've got a very complex question challenge. Given all the variables that you talked about. Right. Do you get? Are you able to fall back on the state board for some assistance? Is there some uniformity in approach and forecasting across all of the community technical colleges? Or are we all on our own? We're kind of all on our own. And unfortunately, there, at least from my experience last year, one of the things that was kind of disheartening last year was that there were a number of questions that all the community colleges were asking themselves. One being, will the legislature, will the state government approve a tuition increase this year? Right. And we asked that question over and over and over in multiple different ways, and we're not able to get a straight answer. Another example is, will the state continue in some way? Will they fill the gap with the absence of COVID-related funding? Because we had heard that the state had significant revenues that they were sitting on, and that would help. That would really help community colleges. Again, we couldn't get a straight answer. So the colleges kind of determined how they were going to handle that. In both cases, we chose to assume no. So no tuition rate increase and no additional COVID money. As it turns out, late in the budget year, the state legislature did approve a tuition rate increase. So there's not, unfortunately, we don't get the answers we need in a timely way. And although there are common discussions within the various at the state board level, there doesn't tend to be any consensus in how we approach things. It really truly is just kind of up to the college and their kind of risk tolerance, risk. Just going to increase enrollment.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think one thing mentioned is that the state board, it's more than the state board doing this, but they're reviewing the whole allocation model. And, you know, just for those of you who understand how we're funded, the legislature allocates a bucket of money to the community technical colleges. They give it to the state board, the SBCTC, and they do the allocations to all 34 institutions based on an allocation formula. So what Ron was talking about, and President Cataluzzi, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to go back and redo this allocation model. And you know, schools have been hit a little harder, some less. And I guess there's a lot of variables in how that allocation model is done. And that's what this committee is supposed to sort out. But as Ron said, we have no idea, you know, what they're going to come up with. But, so that's, you know, that's variable. Another is that that we really didn't consider here, and that is that the state does allocate more money. I mean, we've got the state board went in budget request for I think an 8.2% increase in this was not in percentages, but in dollars, but a substantial increase in compensation, you know, to deal with employee, faculty, particular compensation. And then there was additional money for, I don't know, Mark, help me out here, for facilities and for lot capital. Lot for capital, right. I think they went in and asked for $1.5 billion for capital.
And also the salary increases, and also to make salary increases from the past whole. Many years ago, the state legislature funded salary increases at 100%. Then a few biennia ago went down to 65%. So if they fund increases at 65%, that equates to a 35% cut to the college, because the college has to make up the difference. And then in the legislative session, they went up to 85% funding, but we're still after that 15%, because again, that's a 15% cut to the college, and it's not a one-time cut, that's an ongoing cut, right? So we're trying to make all those increases whole. If they're going to fund us, it would be nice if they fund 100%.
So this, at the end of this week, we're having the state trustee organization and having our annual fall legislative get together. And this is where we form strategy and how we're going to go after the legislators to lobby for, we can't lobby. But, go in and talk to the legislators about the benefits of approving these increases in budget. So, you know, there's some possible relief out of it. The bottom line, when you look at these numbers, enrollment has got to be the answer. You've got to just pull out the stops on finding ways to get students back in here. New students, old students, general, you know, workforce education. And all these things we've talked about, we've got to just accelerate the implementation of these people back in. So, of course, I'm sorry, the state budget, the budget committee, and this is part of the shared governance.
Yes.
Right. So they're going to be on. We keep talking about out in the future. This is December. We have to pass this new budget and present it in May. Passed in June. So is there some? What's their approach going to be to coming up with the recommended budget? What can be done on the budget side?
So the budget council meeting twice a month since September, the beginning of September. We had a meeting yesterday for the first in November, and we had scheduled to have a conversation about Parliament yesterday, but we were not. We were actually looking to have a guest speaker come talk to us about that from institutional effectiveness, and they were not available. So we're starting to have those conversations, and so we in a build up to January timeframe, we're beginning conversations about those budget building assumptions, so that when
when we come back after the holiday break, we'll be able to start kind of putting together, kind of how we are seeing the world and how that will impact us in our budget thinking.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For, you said the state board was looking at reallocating the funds. What are they getting a new methodology or is it the same one they used before?
Well, great question, and I think the answer is nobody knows. They apparently, and I wasn't here for this, but the issue is that was a very contentious process the last time. It took much time and effort, and really the heart and soul of many people that were involved. Because the challenge is you don't want to unfairly harm or disadvantage one college or set of colleges over another. The president used the example yesterday of technical college versus, regular community colleges and other, subsets of our 34 community college district institution. And so I think there are lots of folks that should be on there that may not want to be on there because of the pressure and because of all the time and effort. But I think the reality, everybody kind of acknowledges that the current model doesn't work given the situation that we find ourselves in. The original model was predicated on growth, and we just have not had growth for many years. And so we now need to have kind of a reality check and figure out how we can keep colleges healthy in some sort of a holding pattern going forward, and provide for fund for initiatives, new approaches to increase enrollment, increase student success, and really drive innovation at the college level. So I'm hoping that that's kind of where they're going to go with this. But how long it will take for it to be implemented once it comes together, that's all kind of up in the air.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's a great question. I think Chair Ackerman talked about, the opportunity to talk to and to hopefully have some influence, have at least some listening ears on the part of the circles that you walk in, the constituencies and the agencies that you talk to, the officers in the agencies that you talk about on a regular basis. I think it's important just to highlight the problems, the challenges that Olympic faces specifically, but also that we're not alone, and that we are, the community colleges are truly, we're kind of at the, what's the word I want to say? We're kind of at the mercy of the state board and the legislature, and we want to be successful. We want to succeed, but given the tools that we have, given the challenges that we're facing, this is increasing more and more.
I guess I would just add, I think we have new leadership at the state board level, and that I think they're going to take a real much fresher approach to asking for additional funds, getting funding models changed, doing things differently, recognizing we've got to do things differently. One point I wanted to make, and wrapping up here, is that you forecast those deficits. We do have some reserves, the trust have reserve funds that can plug some of the gaps in the budget. But you can only spend that money. I mean, trustees can't just take that money and plug a gap on a one-time basis if there's not a light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't know that we're on a path to get enrollment back, we can weather the storm for a couple of years. If we just keep plugging the hole of the deficits with reserves, we run out of reserves, then we got nothing to fall back on. And there's a number of colleges, I think I've said that in the past, I don't know, upwards of 5 or 6 that have no reserves, and they're looking at the same kind of projections. But I think they're in the position of borrowing. I didn't know that was an option, when they're doing it, but I don't think it's long-term option for sure. But, again, this is where I come back to, looking at how we do business, how we, what are some things we can do? Obviously in 6 months, you're not going to plug that enrollment gap. But if we can get some programs going, we can fund some new initiatives, we can plug some of the budget gaps over time. But we've got to be able to see that curve start to back up and say there is a light in the tunnel. The money we take out of reserves to cover the deficits right now are money well spent. Otherwise, they're just money, it's good money falling down. And I'm very pleased that Ron, I think, doing an excellent job of sorting this out and presenting it so that we all understand it. Thank you. I appreciate that. He and I argue a lot. I had a slide in there that depicted that. I wish I would have wanted it.
You can send it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, some sobering numbers. I'm hoping that we can have a study session or two to kind of focus on the other side. What are some things that are going on? Get to the positive side, and there is a positive side. All right, moving on to the consent items. We have the draft minutes for the October 18th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, moving on to action items, the yearly events calendar. Adam?
In your packet, you have the events calendar that highlights months of events as well as those for the rest of the year. I want to pay particular attention to the ACT Winter Congress. This, like it's, it is coming up this week, and we are attending that. And there's also a legislative action committee meeting the day prior. So that'll be 1 week. Next week, we do have our sprint to the Thanksgiving holidays, and then it's a race finish line in early December. Any questions from the board regarding upcoming events?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Okay, next information item is the budget update, Monday in September 2022. Adam?
We have Ron Ellison and Angela Hamilton.
I believe Angela will take the lead on this.
Mr. Devine, can you unmute?
There we go. Unmute it. Good evening, Chair Ekman and the other Board of Trustees. We met with the Finance Committee earlier this week to discuss the cash on hand and the operating budget to actuals, reported revenue and expenditures for the period ending September 30th, 2022. As you look at the report, you see the state operating revenues are 13% lower compared to the same time last year. But see note 1, as of this year, only instruction is on state allocated funds. And tuition is 4% higher than the same time last year. And we are at 20% of our budget. Do we have any questions about the operating budget to actuals or cash on hand.
Questions? I think we're good. Anyone?
Thank you.
You have any more? I guess not. Okay, next information item is the hazing policy.
Mr. Chair, we have a summary from sources.
Chairman, trustees, President Lizzie. Come before you with an information item regarding proposed hazing prevention policy. In the fall of 2019, Sam Martinez was a freshman at Washington State University. He pledged to a fraternity, and during one of their activities on a weekend, he passed from alcohol poisoning. Over the next 2.5 years, his parents made their mission to do what they could to change the laws in the state of Washington for institutions of higher education. They did that, and Sam's law was passed, and it is House Bill 1751. And all institutions of higher education in the state of Washington must implement hazing prevention procedures and programs, including offering students and employees hazing prevention training and programming, implementation of a mandatory reporting procedure, creation of a hazing prevention committee, and publication of a hazing report. Now, this model policy and procedure was written by an SBCTC work group led by our former AAG Bruce Marvin and Joe Holliday, SBCTC Student Services. Questions?
Questions? I just have one. I understand we're doing this because it's new legislation that we're required to. Does Olympic College have any history of hazing incidents?
Not to my knowledge, no. Long-term folks and
You don't want me.
Okay. All right, thank you.
okay, absolutely. And that was the HR today. We also have a temporary administrative appointments policy. This policy will essentially allow for consistent salaries to be provided to employees who are moving into acting and interim positions. And it's meant to codify the policy around those temporary administrative assignments and additional duties. And the policy you have outlines the intent, scope, definitions, duration, and compensation for those temporary appointments. So it gives formulas instead of what should we do in this case. So we'll establish consistency around that.
And is this policy is proposed to bring into same alignment with whatever colleges are doing?
That's my knowledge now, just to have some consistency around what we are doing here.
Okay, any questions? Okay, the next information item is employee retention and stay interviews.
We put a human resources metric present.
Oh, okay.
Chair and Board of Trustees presentation will also be on the screen, so if you need table. We'll be starting with the human resources metric.
Thank you, Adam. To recommend, members of the Board of Trustees, good evening. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Moni. I'm the Public Records Manager here for Olympic College. And I'm here to present the new Olympic College Metrics Dashboard. So this is the new Olympic College Metrics Dashboard. I will go over the metrics with you today, but please refer to the HR board report that you should have already received for more details. The plan is to report the metrics this way on a monthly basis to be posted on the HR SharePoint page. Please hold your questions until the end, and I or my colleagues here representing the HR department will try to do the best of our knowledge. Next slide, please. So staff ratios. The chart on the left represents the current number of full-time staff by classifications. There's roughly 30% more full-time faculty and full-time classified staff than full-time admin here at OC. The chart on the right shows part-time and full-time non-faculty staff. Part-time does not include adjunct or student employees. Here, between these two metrics is about 25%. We have 25% more full-time non-faculty staff than part-time employees. Next slide. For recruiting, so here our best calculation in total spent year to date is $189,145. Service fees and recruiter salaries are included in this total amount. The service fees account for things like job posting sites, job fairs, and travel expenses. However, travel expenses have not been consistently tracked, so this amount is slightly higher. To the best of our assessment, we can go back to as far as April of this year. We have $1,191 cost per hire, which is much lower than the average of $4,700 cost per hire across all industries, and about or lower in higher ed, which the average is $2,000 to $4,000 for new hire. Currently, we have 27 full-time positions that are open. Faculty adjunct positions are not included in this count because these job postings are continuous recruitment and are hired on quarterlies depending on the need of the college. And the average takes 92 days to fill a full-time position. You see by the full-time applications, classified admin and full-time faculty. This is actually higher than the national average of 36 to 42 days, with full-time faculty taking the longest to fill. For interviewees, qualified candidates are screened and selected by a hiring committee for interviews. The numbers show that 2 to 5 people are interviewed per full-time position. Our turnover rate, 13%, which is the turnover rate across all industries hovers around 18%, with a rate higher in higher education of 15 to 20%. And here, OC turnover is actually below average. Average for annual compensation. Tracking average compensation allows to compare against community and statewide benchmarks or other colleges and against inflation and cost living changes. For full-time faculty salaries, our averages base salaries including high demand paid positions like in engineering or nursing, but it does not include stipends, non-curriculum or moonlight appointment paid faculty. Our full-time admin are exempt non-executive positions in this average, so it doesn't include the salaries of the executive team, the VPs, and the president. Next slide, please. HR staff to employee ratios. So employees on our payroll, we have a total of 716. This total number of employees is the number paid on the most recent payroll and not the total count of people employed by the college. Total employee counts provide a snapshot at any given time, while the numbers on payroll provide a picture of our employees' population over time. Also, workforce and work study student employees are not included in this count. HR to employee ratio, to have 9 HR to 1.18 to 100 full-time employees, which is a standard HR metric. The average HR to FTE is actually 2.57 for all organizations, while larger organizations with optimized HRIS systems can average as low as 1.03. So we're actually, again, below the average or just at the average. And this is a work in progress, both evaluations and for classified and admin. We're still working on tracking those. Also absenteeism, we're working on tracking that as well. We're tracking the use of sick leave and leave without pay as an organizational culture indicator. Seeing a spike in sick leave use in a particular month as compared to the same month in previous years can be an indicator of morale and or engagement. So we haven't been tracking this. It's really too soon to be able to see a trend. Right now, I can only tell you that it's gone down from September of this year to October of this year. Soon we'll do data analysis for this, as well as for evaluations. The process of tracking the evaluation is being reworked. We will have a better picture soon with numbers by classification broken down by completed, due, and upcoming. Right now we will have completed and due for classified staff. And this type chart just reflects the evaluations of this year, 2022, year to date. And now back to the dashboard. We're hoping to continue this on a monthly basis. Like I said before, hopefully, it might change, it might not, depending on reporting needs. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. This is a great start. You're giving us some real metrics to start working against. And I'm assuming part of your plan is to start doing some trend analysis for OC, also to get some benchmarks that we can compare. Because a lot of these numbers, it's like, is that good or is that bad? I'm
right.
Not sure. And so anyway, some external benchmarking would be helpful. And I don't know if the state board can help with that or how to do that. But anyway, here's your recommendation. Another question is where do the adjuncts fit in here? We're looking at staffing. When we say full-time faculty, is that tenured faculty?
Yes, all faculty except for adjuncts.
Yeah, so why are adjuncts not here?
Well, my colleague here can help me with that question.
My understanding is that we didn't factor the adjuncts into this count because that goes quarter by enrollment rates. So that was so we figured we'd start with our full-time class salary staff across the board and then be able to have a baseline because that metric with adjuncts fluctuates quarter to quarter depending on enrollment.
Okay. Well, I guess I would at some point like to see adjuncts kind of move in here. I think that's an important measure. How heavily are we relying on adjunct faculty versus tenured full-time faculty?
So should we add a classification for the next time? Because it'd be easy to do just to say, okay, this quarter we have X number of faculty. It'd be a simple thing to add. Okay.
As former adjunct faculty, we're short enough. So I think we need to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's an easy addition.
Thank you.
Is it possible to have some of the slides to us?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It will be posted to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Very good.
Okay, I think we're going to the next slide.
We are, so we have our next information item. And that would be the employer retention offer. Number 6 in the narrative.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Ready to one up front. You just taking chairs. Okay, well, I guess I'm starting this. Good evening, Chair Ekman and Board of Trustees. I'm Kathy Anderson, one of the recruiters here. Aaron and I are the team for OC, and tonight Aaron's going to show you some presentation, or our presentation for employee engagement and retention. So we're kind of tying this to these metrics, and we have to build on this process. But Aaron is going to take it from here and go through some information we've put together for you.
Good evening, I'm Erin. After seeing Elizabeth's one presentation on metrics, we know that our turnover rate is currently at 13%, which is below industry average, which is amazing, and we want to make sure that we continue to keep that. Therefore, we have decided to start incorporating 2 new processes, which is 30-day check-ins and interviews. So for our 30-day check-ins, and how this will be accomplished is still kind of a work in progress, but ultimately our goal is to provide new employees and those moving internally within the college an opportunity to let us know how they're doing and ask them a set of standardized and open-ended questions that will allow us to track areas that may need improvement and identify where HR can. Next slide, Adam. And then the next thing that we have are exit interviews. We're currently doing exit interviews, and we offer them voluntarily to each employee that's leaving the college. Even though we're doing this process, it needs to be updated. It's a little outdated. That's why we're not able to gather much information based on exit interviews as to why exactly they're leaving the college. So by creating a new voluntary survey with quantitative and open-ended questions as well, we'll be able to collect the data that will allow us to continue building on our successes and see where we may need to focus in order to retain our employees. And then next slide, please. Now by incorporating there's a few things that we can expect to see. So our data is going to show us exactly why people are leaving. Although compensation is something that people are leaving their jobs for, it's not always the #1 reason. Statistics have shown that 1 in 5 are leaving, who leave their jobs, actually take a pay cut when they leave. And COVID isn't still causing an increase in what we're calling the Great Resignation, because studies also say that 43% that do leave their job say they were happier in the previous job during the pandemic. These 2 processes are a good thing, and we're creating the opportunity to play on our strengths and identify our weaknesses to grow our reputation and keep our employees happy. In the future, we will be incorporating an employee check-in after their 6-month period. This will give more information since they've been here long enough to get familiar with their job and their surroundings. Ultimately, we want to increase our organizational culture to make sure that our employees are comfortable and happy. That's all I have to present to y'all today. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Erin.
I did have a couple. I think I know the answer, but do we also have an onboarding process for employees to supersede the 30-day check-in?
Yeah, we have onboarding, which is when they come in, do all their paperwork, get them all set up to go. And then we have orientations twice a month. So we have in-person orientation that's held in the boardroom that covers company culture, policy, safety, all those kinds of things. And that's a 4-hour presentation every 2 weeks.
Right, okay, orientation.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and usually that'll be on their first day. Sometimes it'll depend on how soon we need that employee to start.
Sure.
So it's usually either the first day or the first week or so.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the exit interviews and on the 30 days, actually, are intended to be in-person interviews, if at all possible?
The goal we're trying to hopefully see if we can do the 30-day person. I know that currently what we're doing is for our exit interviews is we're giving them that survey and then giving them the option, like if they would like someone to reach out, we would reach out and have that in-person conversation. And I believe still planning on doing that, giving them that option to come in and have a longer conversation about their exit interviews if they so choose.
Have you been getting feedback on the exit interviews?
I have not received feedback. I didn't know we were doing them until I started looking further into it. And currently they're really based around COVID. And I just think it's a little bit outdated because we're all coming back to work. Like, it's still a real thing, but I don't think it needs to be the center point of our exit interviews.
I guess my experience is that just online sending out a survey, people in that, so they're not highly motivated to complete that.
Right, right.
And in an in-person interview, you're going to get a lot more, I think, truth.
Absolutely.
And response rate. And I know it's difficult to do something.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a huge believer that body language says a lot too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And just so you know, Chair, we've not formalized the process on how we're going to roll this out. So we've got a plan in place. We're working with Josh to kind of connect the dots and see what's going to be best to set that up. Who's going to do it? What kind of timing? How are we going to make it happen?
But I think it's great you're working on this, so that you're great start.
No, I think that's great.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We need to come back with that.
Okay.
You guys, I know. We're just commenting here, one of the highlights for the trustees of the meeting, that Adam gets the Jimmy John sandwich. He didn't do it this time.
I told him not to.
We're blaming you.
We're blaming budget counts. I guess next action item is the SMA budget allocation.
For the seat, we have Rosie Harper.
Good evening. This month, I presented a budget update to those student activities, the budget for fiscal year 22-23. In that presentation, I outlined the proposed allocation of $411,000 of SMA funds that were unexpected. So I'm asking for your approval for that tonight, and then all programs except itself can be fully funded for this school year. Thank you. I can answer any questions.
Question?
I don't. You do a great job.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the additional SMA budget allocation?
I'll make a motion to approve the additional SNAP budget allocation.
Second. Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion or questions? Motion been made and seconded to approve the additional SMA budget allocation. Action items presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Welcome, Candelaria. Motion
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brenda. Okay, the next action item is the administrative appointment letter policy change.
There, we have Rick Summer.
Chairman, trustees, action item for administrative appointment letter policy change. We are recommending the revision of the administrative appointment letter language to reflect change to the termination for convenience provision from payment of 2 months liquidated damages, 4 months liquidated damages. All other provisions will remain unchanged.
Do we have any questions? Okay, we have a motion to approve the administrative appointment letter policy change.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? Okay, motion passed. Motion passes. Thank you, Rick. Next action item is a reappointment of the trustee Joan Hampton.
Yes, Chair and Board of Trustees, as discussed last month as an information item, Joan Hampton's term as a Bremer Trust trustee is expiring. She took over the remainder of the term for Steve Rice, who then stepped down prematurely. As you're aware, the Board of Trustees for Olympic College is allowed to make a recommendation for replacement trustee or concur with the Bremer Trust's nomination as their new trustee. Now, the ultimate decision does lie with the Bremer Trust, but it's your prerogative to either concur or provide additional name consideration.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Thank you, Adam. So, I'll introduce the motion that we approve the reappointment trust trustee Joan Hampton action item as presented. Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to the board reports to the board, student government, Olympic College Bremerton. Adam?
This is good, Mr. Brett Hollander, student government.
Hello, good to see you all. Some quick updates from the last meeting. So in our student senate search, over the last 2 weeks, we've conducted 6 interviews. The remainder of the positions we do have available, we have candidates for all those positions except for the Shelton campus, but I've been working closely with Allison Smith on filling that last position. So hopefully we can get all the positions inaugurated by the beginning of December. So next item is the voter awareness events that we've been putting on. So the end of October and early November, we had a few members of a couple of districts around this area. We had Mark Kilmer come speak. We had District Court Judge candidates Shane and Stan Glisson, as well as House Representative candidates seat 1 and 2, Paige Darkwin and Janelle Hurst come and speak. They were able to spread awareness on voting and some initiatives that they think are important in the community. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is that people were able to directly engage these candidates, and I think it improved relations among the community members. Friendsgiving event. So SGOC is established to host a Friendsgiving feast in collaboration with various campus and community. This event will create a sense of belonging for the students as well as raise awareness of food insecurities both in and out. We will also serve a way to promote SGOC student interest survey. So we've created a survey that we plan on actually emailing out and working on tomorrow to just get a sense of food insecurities and housing insecurities in the SC. So this event will be Monday the 21st from 11 to 1, and it will be in building 10 here. So I think roughly over 50 have signed up so far. So hopefully we get more turnout, and we've been working with Fishline on this as well as Buffalo Wild Wings. And then side note, I've actually started the application for the X grant. So
Do it for both tribes
yeah, okay.
and ask for the max.
For the max?
Yeah.
Okay. And then our food drive that started on the 11th of October, some updates. We have seen an outrageous amount of donations. We actually are getting so many donations, it's starting to stack in our office, which is good, but also it's adding some stress. So since the beginning of October, we've had 81 students use the food pantry, which is fantastic. I don't have the exact stats from the last quarter, last school year, but it's probably roughly 3 times the amount of the last school year, the amount of students that use the food pantry so far. So that's great to hear. And yeah, the donations just keep coming in from everyone at the school and the building. They're stacking almost at the end of every week, so that's good. And then final thing, the club fair and congress. So our club fair will be held on November 16th from 11 to 2 in Building 10. And that's where kind of all the clubs that we've had chartered so far are going to be able to meet, discuss, and talk over things. And then kind of staying club topic. Since our last meeting, we've chartered 2 clubs, the D&D club, which is Dungeons and Dragons. It's actually pretty cool. They have a line set up for that. And then engineering club. I know they've talked about working in conjunction with Washington's engineering department and work on some projects around the community. So very excited for those 2 things as well. Any questions?
Just a question, I mean, as you're more clubs, more students back on campus, are you seeing a lot more interest in clubs?
Yes.
Membership?
Yes, I'm actually working and I'm in the beginning process of starting my own club as well. But we have a lot of clubs that are in interest, and we already have a lot of clubs that are already been chartered. So it's looking like our goal for the beginning of the year was to get 8 clubs chartered by the end of the year. And so far, I think 8 clubs are trying to become chartered so far in this quarter.
Right.
So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, when we talk about enrollment, I don't have any numbers, but I've got to believe that if you're getting engagement in clubs, that's going to help you want to stay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great work.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, great job.
I want to be in your club. Okay, next report is from Washington Public Employees Association.
Mr. Chairman and Board of Trustees of the Counter, the VA shop steward is.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Ekman and members of the board for continuing with the hybrid meeting format, providing accessibility for all employees and their community members. It's a critical Olympic College's obligation to be transparent in decision making. And I, for one, really appreciate it. I don't drive well after dark, so my eyes aren't what they used to be. On a really exciting, we look forward to working with our new Director of Labor Relations, Rick Sommers. So that'll be something we really look forward to. On the Sophia Bremer Early Learning Academy, there's a new director on board as far as I know, and I see the family health advocate position is no longer advertised on the website. We hope that that means we have an end in sight for this critical position. However, the current employees are still waiting on the position upgrades that they were promised back when we were resolving the demand bargains. Speaking of demand bargains, we are continuing to work with OFM on the telework policy. We've had a second meeting, and OFM is checking with their lawyers regarding certain parts of the proposed policy and procedures, and we are still continuing to bargain this policy. Moving on to the Cedar High MOU, the union still has not received the proposed MOU for this year, which started July 1st, 2022. So we're waiting for the college to provide that draft before we can meet with OFM. The demand to bargain filed on July 26th. This really isn't acceptable. We need more effective communication between OC and the union, and this needs to be addressed. Our members cannot continually be held accountable to an outdated agreement by a third-party vendor.
Sorry, repeat what that agreement is you're referring to.
The Cedar High MOU down in Shelton.
Right, okay, I know, yeah, I did catch it when you said it.
Okay. Another reorganization is on the horizon, and we just recently received a notice. We sincerely hope that the classified staff that are impacted by this reorganization have been a part of the conversation and that their voices have been heard. It was really nice to hear and see that HR is updating their HR exit interviews, and hope you learn something from employees who are leaving the college. I'd be really curious to know on that beautiful HR dashboard that was presented, the turnover rate per employee classification. The continued attrition of employees leaving OC has a drastic impact on current classified staff. Continuous retraining of new employees takes a considerable amount of time and effort and energy and mental capacity for our senior employees, and it has direct impacts on their ability to successfully complete their own work. We're looking forward to continuing our relationship with our labor management committee, and I'll take any questions.
Questions? Yeah. Thank you for passing the good information.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. Okay, next report to the board is the Association of Higher Education.
All right, well, I'm here in the flesh.
In the flesh.
Thank you. Well, yeah, we're almost towards the end of the meeting. So I have a little bit different report tonight, and I so hope you'll indulge me on this, as I think we're at a juncture, and I think we need to address this. Big elephant in the room here. So it's likely that this will be the last faculty union report to you, actually, at least given by me. And I'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to start with the decision not to require vaccination for students this winter quarter. I think you need to understand what happened here. This decision was made with no input from employees or student stakeholders. While it has been made in the ultimate decision not to require vaccinations, it still was a decision. And for the president to make a unilateral decision that impacts every student and every employee at the college without listening to stakeholder concerns or exploring options is just, well, it's pretty sad. There's growing evidence that unvaccinated people mingling with vaccinated folks end up perpetuating the COVID virus at higher rates. In fact, as one medical peer-reviewed journal stated, non-vaccination is expected to result in amplification of disease transmission in unvaccinated subpopulations. But the communicable nature of infectious diseases means that there is also heightened risk for vaccinated populations when vaccines confer imperfect immunity. I'd be happy to share that report with you, and don't even get me started on long COVID and all the other stuff. At the same time, there are just some practicality to consider in mandating vaccinations. The point, this was a decision that should have been brought to the college community for discussion. It was not. Unlike students, the faculty union is in a lucky enough position to be able to bargain terms that might support faculty and protect them as they teach in classrooms filled with students vaccinated and unvaccinated this winter. We're still waiting to hear about a date for our demand to bargain. All right, so let me turn to another matter. This board seems to have an impression that many of the woes of this institution are due to the faculty. At least that's the impression I'm getting from your board meetings. This is probably rather typical of administrators. It's not unique to OC, but I must say having a board aggressively buy into this narrative is a little bit new for us. The most current narrative is that somehow faculty are needing to step up to help with enrollment at the college. Never mind that we bargained away faculty advisor jobs to position the college to implement new advising and recruiting models. We gave up union positions to help the college. That's not done lightly. Never mind that faculty across this campus already actively engage in recruiting and advising. Never mind, we've been asked for years for faculty training and CTC link around advising activities. Never mind, we are actively implementing restructuring programs around guided pathways. Never mind that recruitment is just 1 out of 10 related duties that we can perform in our contract. These related duties amount to 20% of our overall job. The other 80 is teaching. I want to make clear that faculty are very concerned about enrollment. Our jobs are on the line, not yours, ours. Our mortgages, our healthcare, kids' college funds, retirement, which is why we are so concerned about the leadership of the college and have been expressing this to you for several years. Can our leadership actually lead? For the board to explain to us how dire the situation is misses the mark that you and the college president are responsible to lead us forward. When to start, a strategic plan would be welcomed. Even so far recently in a board meeting to imply that faculty employees do not understand how difficult strategic planning can be. But you seem to not realize this is not our first rodeo many of us have had. In fact, about 6 years ago, we had an intensive strategic planning process involving every nook and cranny of this institution, essentially justifying our existence. Areas of potential growth and reduction were clearly identified by the entire community. And then what happened? Nothing. Now, I'm sure President Cavalluzzi will say that, well, that's not on my watch, but what planning has been done? This leads me to my final point. I think it is time we separated and went our ways, separate ways for a while. This format of 3-minute reports once a month is simply a one-way communication that has resulted in nothing productive and positive for both sides. Even what I have said tonight likely will result in no action on your part. We've come to expect that. And yes, you can get mad, you can call me names, you can call me uncollegial, uncivil, and all the other uns to quell dissent. But you see, we're a union. And as such, we are equal partners with you. We have negotiated a contract with you. We're not employees in the same sense as those that do report to you. In fact, as you have said, you only have one employee. We can only hope that you can see that it's not about arranging deck chairs. It's about the captain steering the ship into iceberg. Now, if you are serious about engaging with the faculty union and addressing the many challenges at OC, we are happy to dialogue with you. As you stated, faculty are indeed the brain trust of the institution. We've got good ideas. We are seldom asked for them. I don't really care what the state board tells you can and cannot do as trustees. You are appointed to support the college and lead us. I said you're welcome to talk to us. We've demonstrated time and time again that we can reach mutually beneficial agreements. However, we are no longer interested in 3-minute reports once a month, to which you never responded. So maybe we can rekindle this relationship. Maybe we can reset it, but that really is going to depend on you. Thank you.
Now, Greg, I'd just like to clarify one point here. We are not blaming the faculty for the enrollment problem. What we're trying to do is enlist an enthusiasm, and you guys are on the front line. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that term. You guys, I know that's people check. I apologize. Faculty is on the front line of what students need and potential new problems. And you say that you have ideas and you don't know what to do. We're begging for the ideas. We want to get these on the table. We want
3 minutes. Give us more time.
Well, if you can bring some ideas, we can do a different format. You know, we're talking about ideas, but I mean, you're talking about the bargains and things like that. If you're going to come and talk about enrollment, let's do that.
Again, you want to set a meeting up with me and then set a meeting with us. I'm not going to come here and just give you ideas left, right, and sideways. That's not the dialogue that is a relationship that we have with you. Faculty do a lot, and it's not always seen, and it's very easy for administration to blame faculty for all kinds of woes, not you OC, it's just an easy mark. We're an easy target. That said, I think you don't have a full picture. I think you have a narrative that you've heard over the past couple of years, presented in a very particular way, and I don't think you've taken the opportunity to hear other narratives. I think you've gotten hints of those, but you haven't approached those. So I think you, if you're interested, having a conversation with faculty would be fantastic, and listen. And it doesn't even have to be the union. Elizabeth can set up something through Faculty Senate if you would like. But we can't do this. Like, this is not a good relationship. Like, we can't come up here and tell you our woes every once a month and read through a script and we tell you it's just done. Like, come on, it's just not gonna work, right? So we would much rather have a good dialogue with you all, talk to you about what we are seeing in our classrooms. Like you said, the world changed, our students have changed. They're just so different from what they were 2 years ago. And we're just trying to adapt. We're the first quarter out of the pandemic, essentially. And it's a rocky road. We're seeing a lot of students ill-equipped. I mean, their high school, bless their hearts in high school, but they did not, those juniors and seniors really did not get a good, solid education. Now they're in our classrooms and we're having to do a lot of remediation, and they have very limited set of skills. And guess what? They're all working full time. I mean, it's beyond what it ever was before. So those are real challenges. You know, our focus, honestly, is not on enrollment, it's on retention. When you get them here, we do everything we possibly can to retain those students. I do have to make a point about a couple things that I'm seeing. I think you might hear from somebody about data. That data from HR, ask a few questions about that, because I have a few questions about what you were presented. Ask a few questions about retention data when you see it. Make sure you understand, does this include running start students who might just be here for a year and then they're gone? Like, they wanted to go to Western, they got some credits at OC and they're off, but we succeeded in getting them there. That's never tracked. So they show up as we lost them. So data like that, you gotta be really cautious when you see, you know, really ridiculous numbers. We need to drill down and make sure we're understanding what exactly is happening with those students. Our faculty can help retain students and get them across that finish line. We do everything possible we can. And every single faculty, there's not a single faculty member who isn't here who is dedicated to their jobs. That not a single one of us. And yeah, we got some problems here or there. We're trying to figure out a few things with online. There's confusion. But never forget what faculty do at this institution. That's our jobs. So please dialogue with us. But honestly, we've had lots of conversation in the union. We just don't think this is fruitful. We just don't want to keep saying bad news. We'd like to give you some good news, but we need a venue to do that. Okay.
You have some thoughts on that? I'm gonna forward here to see if
Right.
we can change the format and the dialogue. We can't engage in, you know, our job is just,
I know.
you know, relationship with the union. We approve content. I told you, you cannot bargain. You can't.
You don't have to do that, you can listen. If that's all you have to do is listen, but maybe a different venue to do that.
All right, great.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
Next report is Faculty Senate.
Good evening. I want to start my comments by just clarifying that I am not on the executive team of the union. I am not privy to the comments that Craig makes, and Craig is not on the Faculty Senate. So if there are commonalities in those things, there are also, I don't think, there's a representative, but there's not any communication about these reports. So I've been asked by the Faculty Senate to give the following comment, and we would like to address the request from the board for enrollment and recruitment ideas. First, we want to be very clear that we recognize the situation that the college is now in and how it impacts all employees. We know that this is important. I do want to read about our job from the contract. There are essential responsibilities, things like providing quality instruction related to
preparation, grading, providing class syllabi to students, teaching assigned courses in the appropriate disciplines in accordance with the college catalog, the schedule of classes, course outlines, course syllabi, and any departmental guidelines, maintaining accurate records of students and in complete forms as required, maintaining office hours, participating in all faculty division and discipline meetings, and participating in required accreditation, program evaluation, assessment, and documentation of student learning. All of these things are related to providing quality instruction and quality curriculum. It is our goal and responsibility to teach quality classes. In addition to these essential duties, there are 11 related responsibilities. One of those 11 is participation in college outreach. Faculty are not required to do all 11. Some faculty choose to, and it lends itself well to their program, and we encourage faculty to participate in these. So it is not the faculty's responsibility to develop an enrollment plan. However, we have some suggestions. Now, before I read this list, I want to say two things very clearly. First, we know that many of these activities are already happening, and we support the people that are doing this work. Secondly, it is the responsibility of the administration, the president, and the executive team to coordinate these efforts. So our recommendations are the following: develop a comprehensive enrollment plan, host enrollment events, run social media campaigns and ads, conduct calling campaigns, do outreach to high schools and other local organizations, leverage long-standing relationships with community organizations and events, improve the CTC Link experience and the schedule planner, and support the testing center, which is currently self-funded. Again, I want to stress that we are all here to support the people currently doing this work, and we encourage the administration to do this as well. I'm pleased to hear comments at the beginning of the board meeting and that the board plans to address this and focus on enrollment. The faculty and the faculty senate are working to address issues related to retention. Things like the schedule plan, what modes of instruction we use, academic integrity and plagiarism, and academic policies that impact students. We know that these things, together with a robust enrollment plan, will enable a student to continue, the students to be, excuse me, I'm just going to start that over. We know that these, together with a robust enrollment plan, will enable students to continue to be successful at Olympic College. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that list. I think we can help with that. Any questions? Comments? Okay, moving on to the combined administrative report of the Board of Trustees. President Campbell, do you have anything additional to report?
Karen, I do not. What stands? Presented.
Dr. Taga, do you have anything you want to add to your?
I do. Can you hear me clearly?
We can.
Good evening, Chair Ekman and trustees. I apologize I can't be there in person. Currently, I led a team to Toronto. I just want to let you know it's all beautiful and sunny. No, I'm kidding. There was wet snow this morning, so a lot of us want to come back. But here in Toronto, there's a strategic enrollment management conference that's been put on by the national, the kind of main North American organization. And joining us on the team is Martin Cockcroft, Vice President of Instruction, Jen Glazier, Elsa Cryer, John Weber, as well as Heather Lukashin. So many of these folks are on the call, but we couldn't be there in person. So I want, just to add to kind of frame a little bit more, I entirely am in support of, the list again of activities that Elizabeth Briggs had mentioned. Many of those we're working on. And one of the drivers for us coming to this conference is really to develop a clearer and comprehensive plan around strategic enrollment. And bringing along instruction on that team shows the critical component of that partnership, especially with Ron Ellison and his report that focused on it. So it's really, like many of you are sharing, a team effort that cuts across many of the different councils and operational areas. I think we may be getting tripped up a little bit on language. Enrollment, as we broadly conceive it, includes from outreach to retention to even alumni engagement, which includes everything from recruiting events to quality instruction, the type of advising that faculty do in the classroom, and engagement with students. And so these are all the different dimensions. And I really want to applaud the efforts here and the interest in increasing this, the quality of our student experience to keep our students as well as engaging with our students and communities. So that's all I had to add. I want to thank my team for coming out here to cold, snowy, wet Toronto, and we'll see you all soon. Any questions for me?
No, thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan.
Thank you.
Mr. Ellison, anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. And I don't have anything to add, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, Jackie Curry, you're going to, anything to add to Mrs. McMaster's report?
The orientation was already mentioned by Rick regarding Carol's position change the title. Nothing else.
Any questions? Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Devine, you're going to an additional report. Anything happening recently in your life?
Chairman Ekman and members of the board, I do want to take a moment to update everyone on the launch of the new website. So we were able to successfully launch the new website on November 9th, and the site is stable. It's running fast. Search is bringing back relevant results, and that's going to only get better over time because we're able to configure search results. Since launching the site, we're working closely with departments who may or may not have had a chance to review their pages before they went live to quickly get them edited to make sure that the site is accurate for people. A lot of talk about enrollment today, and one of the early, really positive signs that we're seeing with the new website is that we scaled up our use of Salesforce. That's our outreach and recruitment database. And so on every single area of study web page, there's a request info button. And literally, because the layout is so much better, the site is so much leaner and cleaner, we're getting a big uptick in people completing those forms. And what's cool is we have a new data point. I mean, just today alone, I kid you not, today alone, we got 10 inquiries, prospects who completed these forms for medical assisting, welding, STEM fields. I was reaching out to colleagues to let them know, hey, we're getting names. The Welcome Center is going to respond, but what do you want to do with these? So I hope folks view and embrace this website as a tool that helps us collect, realize our outreach, recruitment, enrollment, and retention goals. I want to just, if you indulge me for just a quick moment, I want to thank all of the people who work on this project. Allison Fair, who in her role as executive director of OIE brought this idea to the table, and is really why we were able to do this project, leveraging guided path funds. Desi Lunsford, IT applications development. Stephen Weigel, communications and web service coordinator. Jennifer Pebbles, graphic design. Doug, IT accessibility coordinator. Jean Jackman, freelance writer. Christina Henry, freelance writer. Barnett, freelance video producer. Matt Powell, freelance video producer. Tiffany Diamond, freelance photographer. Amy Hesketh, filmmaking faculty, participated in a photo shoot, as did Sarah Robertson from the MESA program, Scott Robertson from MESH faculty, Kevin Blackwell from CIS, in addition to international education, military veteran programs, multicultural, campus security, and filmmaking.
Great. Yes. Yes.
Sean, could you say a couple things about the feedback you got from the presentation that you and Elsa gave to the state board, and the feedback you got from the vendor, and a comment about how it's truly a student-focused website?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I was asked to present at the State Board Public Information Commission quarterly meeting on our new website and use of Salesforce, text messaging, Ocelot chatbot, and funnel back search. And so we demonstrated how Elsa and the Welcome Center are using Salesforce to create applications or sign up forms for Enroll Now. When a prospective student fills out that form, they're brought into the database as a new prospect, and we're able to assign all of the different activities for Enroll Now. Then they instantly receive automated emails and follow-up messages confirming their appointment. There, we're able to automate emails and text messages and one-off messages to these individuals. We demonstrated using live chat, and this was all on the production environment of the website before it went live, how we use live chat to respond to folks, get them the information they need. In the demo, I said, hey, I want to enroll, but I don't know what to do. And from there, Elsa guided me through that process using Salesforce. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and the reality is that we're out on the ledge on this one. We're a leader, and a lot of times we're our own worst critic, but we're doing a lot of great things here together as a team, and we have a great opportunity in front of us, and I'm excited to leverage this website and all of the different tools that we use to meet those goals. One of the things we said throughout this project is that we were hyper-focused on the student, that we wanted to create a student-centered website. The previous version of the website had a lot of internal content that was intermingled with student content. We were able to reduce the total number of pages from 750 to 500, which is one of the reasons why we're bringing back much more relevant search results. We know that taking internal content off of the website and putting it in places like SharePoint is a big change for the college and for folks. So this is why we have a rollout plan that involved 7 different forums that we've held for different audiences, email communications, social media, digital screens around campus. So we want to come alongside people and help them in this change so that they're able to find access to things like CTC link and email that might have been in other places, where we've also learned that some of the things we thought, best laid plans, miss things. So we're learning as we go with this as well and adapting and pivoting. But we feel incredibly proud of what we worked together to produce for our students, and we're excited to, get the most out of this new tool.
Great piece of work.
I am a great piece of work. Thank you.
That's it. Nice job.
Thanks,
Okay, Mr. Morris, do you have anything to add to your report?
Sure, I do not.
Any questions? Okay, I think we're going to move on to communication from the public. Adam?
Sure, we have first up this evening, Barbara Parker.
I know you're all pretty shocked that I don't have my usual napkin, but I actually typed this up. So I want to first say, President Cavalisi, board members, and fellow employees that are awake. I want to share a few thoughts on self-care tonight. And I want you to know that I'm speaking my perspective and from my heart. First, I want to thank Martin Cockcroft for facilitating the celebration of life, remembering Teen Amy Hatfield. It was a beautiful, well-attended event, and I know it meant a great deal to her family, her colleagues, and her friends. Threaded throughout the comments was the recurring theme of how hard Amy worked. One person mentioned seeing the light in her office at 7, 8, or 9 p.m. It made me wonder how many of Olympic College's employees are doing that. I wonder how we can support the employees of the college, be they faculty, groundskeepers, facilities management, or administrators, in taking care of themselves. Think about how Harold Kushner said, no one ever said on their deathbed, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. During the pandemic, we often heard that we needed to give our students grace. They were dealing with homeschooling, Zoom, poor internet, and the list goes on. Well, the pandemic is ongoing, and we are still dealing with COVID, influenza, RSV, inflation, high gas prices, a war in Ukraine, other wars threatening, even nuclear weapons are on the table. Children are struggling in school. The suicide rate is rapidly rising, especially in teens. So maybe it's time we give ourselves and each other a break. Maybe it is time to slow down and reconnect with each other in the workplace that many of us have been away from for months. When we talk about projects, we often think about how much it will cost in dollars and cents. How often do we ask what it will cost in time? The people who work here are our most precious resource. Instead of scheduling more meetings, we should carve out time for people to engage in self-care. Last week, Jamie Cox Garcia sponsored a speaker who spoke to resilience and self-care. He mentioned that we applaud overachievers and overworking, and we need to focus more on what is important. The journey is the thing, and we need to find balance, have real expectations, not duties. His quote for saying no was, "Thank you for considering me, but I say no at this time." Last December, Jamie facilitated a presentation on wellness, resilience, and COVID. Dr. Mona Johnson shared workplace well-being strategies, which included setting boundaries, active listening, taking breaks, and reaching out for support. She quoted Deborah Day, who said, "Encourage and strengthen one another, for the positive energy spread to one will be felt by us all. For we are all connected, one and all." Like everyone on campus could have seen it. Hopefully we can find a space for these types of events instead of scheduling more meetings. My goal is that maybe everyone can see that we are all doing the best we can, and isn't it best to give grace? I'm almost done. I want to conclude with a quote from an article by Dr. Ruth Koshin that was published last year by Forbes magazine. It was titled, "When Good Work is Rewarded with More Work." It began like this: "I've often been told that if you want something done, you give it to a busy person to do." That was originally a quote from Benjamin Franklin. That might work in the short term, but will quickly cause an imbalance in the workload. The risk is burning out your top performers. When you're good at something and show you are responsible, hardworking, and a high achiever, the reward for great work is often more work. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Mr. Craig.
All right, it's me again. All right, and I'm not the union president on this. I just wanted to express another concern that I have. And it's over the use of the termination for convenience clause that you guys just again reinstated with the administrative policy appointment. You might be going, why on earth does he care about that? I do care because these are our supervisors. These are our deans are our supervisors, and so there's some concern here. So that change to the letter appointment was made by a vice president of HR who is no longer at the institution. I am happy that you modified the policy to be more supportive with the four months versus 2. Excuse me. So just so everybody has context, this is the policy that administrators are hired under that's most concerned. It reads, "The president may terminate this appointment for convenience without cause and the president's sole discretion upon 5 days written notice to the appointee, accompanied by 4 months current salary payment as liquidated damages. Should the president exercise this clause, the college would have no further obligation to provide salary benefits or employment." So my understanding is this clause has recently been used to end the employment of a dean of an entire division. I also understand it was recently used to end employment for one of our data analysts. I'm not sure how many other people have had to go conveniently. And I'm not sure how this really creates any convenience for them. I do know it created a lot of inconvenience for the college. I worry that you all adopted an employment policy that might detract from the college's ability to retain qualified administrators. We just saw another failed search for the VP of DEI. And with the stroke of the pen, the president can terminate employment as an employee for convenience, and now has done so really publicly. It's in the system. And I'm not sure you're, but OC doesn't exactly have the best reputation in the CTC system for providing administrators stellar work conditions. We now are down 2 deans and another one is retiring in a month. And I'm really worried the application of the convenience clause is only going to give qualified candidates a bit of pause before accepting a position at OC. So now you're probably wishing, after what I said tonight, that you could conveniently end my employment. Luckily, I'm in a position that will require a little more heavy lifting to do that. I'm also, though, in a position that affords me the ability to speak when others simply cannot for fear of losing their jobs. And I'm afraid that's a messaging that's gone out. And we've seen a direct impact of the stress that created on a particular individual. And so I'm just grateful, and I'm able to say something to you all as a consideration. It's tricky, it's difficult, but administrators at the institution are scared. They're going to lose their jobs. And that impacts instruction. Thank you.
Did you say that?
Fortunately, there's one more.
Oh, lucky them. Hi, good evening. I'm here as a WPEA staff for Olympic College. I'm going to read a statement that we had sent out to our members in response to the vaccine mandate decisions that have come after our contract bargaining session this year. The title is Vaccine Mandates, the Governor's Executive Orders, and the New Contract Vaccines and WPEA Representative Employees. Since the pandemic began, the Governor has put in place various executive orders requiring employees to be vaccinated for COVID-19 or to have a valid exemption from the vaccine or an approved accommodation in order to remain employed. WPEA does not have a contractual requirement to be vaccinated in higher ed. The vaccine requirements have been the result of the Governor's executive orders. On November 1st, 2022, these executive orders expired. When that happened, higher education employers were free to lift the vaccine requirements for employees. Some employees filling certain positions may still be required to be vaccinated. For example, employees in positions funded by specific grants may continue to require vaccinated employees, childcare, correctional industries, those sorts of things. As with other employers, higher education employers may decide to have certain rules and requirements that are stricter than what is required by the law. Next year, on July 1st, 2023, the terms and conditions of the new higher education contract between WPEA and the state of Washington will be in effect. All contracts are a compromise. There are contract changes we do like that go along with the contract changes that we most certainly do not like. The 2023-2025 higher education contract is no exception. This contract, unlike our current contract, will require vaccination for COVID-19. To be clear, the employer's higher education bargaining team, which we collectively which included representatives from colleges covered by our contract, insisted that the new contracting vaccine requirement for employees. As bargaining was drawing to a close and the WPEA bargaining team was still refusing to agree to any vaccine requirement in the new contract, the bargaining team for the employer, which includes the employer's representative here from Olympic College, insisted that the vaccine requirement for employees be tied to certain economic benefits. For example, the $1,000 lump sum payment to employees who received the COVID-19 booster would only be included in the contract if the vaccine requirement for employees was included. The WPEA bargaining team, including classified staff from various colleges, debated and deliberated long and hard and passionately on this. Not only was this a demand from the employer in their last, best, and final offer, but the bargaining team understands that the overwhelming majority of our existing members are in fact already fully vaccinated, as they were forced to do for this state. Some unions welcome the additional lump sum income for their members. WPEA's bargaining team was not going to turn down additional income available to our over 90% of our members if they choose to get boosters, despite other unions making the decision to deny their members that same opportunity. In the end, the higher end bargaining team decided that the economic benefit to our members who had already been under the vaccine requirement for more than 2 years was too great to pass up. The higher ed team decided to go with the economic payments on the table, but the employer team had made clear would only be available if a vaccine requirement was also included. The higher ed team represented the interest of our existing members, and WPEA members ratified the agreement by an overwhelming majority. The administrations of some colleges are stating that the WPEA required vaccines in the new contract. To be clear, this is not true. The vaccine requirement was an employer demand from the very beginning of negotiations. The only way the higher ed bargaining team could get the employer to agree to a contract that did not include a vaccine mandate was to agree to a contract with a lower economic package to our members. The higher ed bargaining team is charged with negotiating the best possible contract for our members. The financial loss of this choice was not one that the higher ed bargaining team was willing to make. The health and safety of our employees is critical. If you have any questions about the new contract or anything else, go ahead and give me a holler, Deb Montez, or contact our WPEA CAD administrator, Amanda Hacker. Thank you.
Lastly, we have Mr. Campbell.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. And I'll be fairly quick, since it's getting late. I was employed at Olympic College as a data analyst for the last 3 years with the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, and I've worked with many of you. During my time at the college, I became increasingly concerned about the accuracy and integrity of the data that was being reported both internally and externally at Olympic College. What I was seeing was a culture at the college that allowed administrators to cherry pick their results, double count students, or do whatever it took to tell a good story. I was raising red flags about the college being down 1,000 students over a year ago, only to be told that I was making student services look bad. I have repeatedly raised my concerns internally through email and at meetings. I raised these issues more than once with President Cavalucci himself and received no response in return. My final attempt was to ask about the process for filing a whistleblower complaint. Following that inquiry, I was let go again for convenience. I was let for convenience without any further explanation. This is despite a history of positive annual performance reviews and the documented status from my superiors. My primary concern is the lack of oversight at the college. There's a lack of transparency and inclusion both within the college and with the community at large. I should say especially with the community at large. It should raise a red flag when an employee gets fired for talking about a whistleblower complaint. State employees should not be punished for raising our concerns. All of us at the college work for the people of the state of Washington, not for the Board of Trustees, not for the president. We work for the people of the state of and have the responsibility to make sure that our tax dollars are spent wisely. Finally, as long as I have you here, I'd like to reach out specifically to Trustee Bryant and ask you to please make sure that the race equity scorecard does not just get stuck on a shelf somewhere. It took Dr. Cheryl Nunez, myself, and many others over 3 years to develop that scorecard for the college. A renowned Harvard expert handed the college an incredible tool for measuring the most important equity gaps of the college. Please use it. The dramatic gaps for BIPOC students made us all feel uncomfortable when we saw it when the data was presented. I urge you to now do the work of erasing those equity gaps and repeating those measures on an annual basis. Please don't just stick it on a shelf. Thank you. It was a pleasure working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Joe.
Thank you.
There's not going to be executive session planned tonight, so I think we will move into the good of the order. Do trustees have anything to add? How would you like the way we did that? Cheryl,
No, I like it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good. Okay, I think we're all tired. So if that's all there is, then hearing no other items, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming.